The main point of Desert Dialogues is to talk to actual people who've been through it, who, I want to say experts, but also people who are experienced. Too often you see people like Piers Morgan, Bassam Youssef, and all these people who claim to be Middle East experts when it's convenient. Convenient as in whenever there's a war going on in the Middle East. They will never talk about it until it starts to become trendy. That is the issue with today's world. I am a veteran of both the United States Army and the Israel Defense Forces. I have personally been on the border of Gaza back in 2018 when Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, and I saw firsthand not only what the Gazans are capable of doing, but what the media is capable of saying. And I would watch the media while being on the border of Gaza and being like, well, that's not right. That's wrong. We're not the aggressors. And so it's only right that I get people who know what the fuck they're talking about onto my program. I find it very important that to have real life experience speak for itself instead of people who are comedians or journalists that live 7,000 miles away. So I'm going to introduce my guests. Doron, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, my name is Doron Keidar. Thank you for being on this podcast. I think it's awesome what you guys are doing. I think it's really important, like you said, to get a voice of people who live, breathe Israel, security, defense, military, some of the subjects that obviously we'll be talking about today. And so my background is that I'm not even though probably people see me on interviews online, that's not been my occupation for most of my working life. Mm-hmm. I was born and raised here in Israel, born down in Eilat. I have these, American accent, but I was literally born, raised here, grew up in Kiryat Shmona, the very northern part of Israel, with literally the most Middle Eastern Jews that you have here, the most Arab Jews. So I'm an American with a Middle Eastern background. I prefer Middle Eastern food to Western food, especially Moroccan, by the way. That's where I grew up with some amazing Moroccan food. Oh. And so that's my background, right? It's Middle Eastern. I know, again, the accent might sound like I'm not, but thank goodness I was able to study years ago. I studied at Bible school in Pensacola, Florida. I grew up to Christian Zionist parents. Actually, my dad was. My mom was Catholic and not so big into the Zionist thing. Mm-hmm. But she went along with my dad, who ended up in Israel post the Sinai agreements. And so my father is actually a World War II vet, and he's one of those Christians in the world back in World War II that was, when he heard that Jews were being killed by Nazis, he's like, that's it. So he's 15 years old. He grew up in Washington, D.C., and was getting letters from friends that he grew up with in the neighborhood. We're here. We're having a great time, Jack. You should join us. This is great. And he's just eating himself up, not because of the boys that he grew up with that are now being sent off to war, but the fact that Jews were being killed, he couldn't sit well with that. So he lied about his age. Okay, so he got recruited, 15 years old. He ended up in the Navy. Oh. He ended up in the submarine units, which were the first time submarine warfare was being used in a global war. And of course, that was the most advanced technology of the day. And he learned electrical engineering. Because of that, he was able to get plugged into being one of the contractors that was brought to Israel, or invited to come, because one of his good friends from the war was like, yeah, we know Jack, he's an Israel nut. He loves Israel. He'll come here in a heartbeat. At this time, he's in Fort Lauderdale, living in Fort Lauderdale in the really nice villas there off of one of the canals. Just built a really nice house, Olympic pool. I mean, he's doing really good for himself. The Pier 66 building, if anybody knows, in I'm not sure if it's Miami or Fort Lauderdale, you have the Pier 66 building, the one with the spikes on top of it.
I was doing underwater welding out there, and I can't think
Yeah.
of. I can't honestly remember the piers. I have my TWIC card, which
Yeah,
gives me
yeah.
port access, but I can't.
So it's still there. It's still there. This building. It was the high tech hotel where the top spins and has colorful lights and whatnot. And so he was doing really cool stuff like that back in the '60s, '70s, and then there's the Sinai Agreement, and he has his opportunity to come here. So he left his first wife, um, and ended up meeting a young girl in Herzliya. And this is a nice little plug, actually, because we have the Herzl beer here, and
Show it to your camera.
I much appreciate you guys plugging this in here,
Hey,
getting us
Herzl.
some Israeli beer. So Israeli beer, Herzl from Herzliya. So that brings me into where my dad actually met his second wife, who was from Kiryat Shmona, and she was a young Israeli soldier, younger than my sister at the time. And I think she was in the Air Force. He fell in love with her. She fell in love with this, charismatic American. And that's how they ended up moving to a home in Kiryat Shmona where she grew up. And then later on, he marries my mother because their relationship didn't work out. She wanted America. He wanted Israel. She found a nice Jewish guy that moved to New York, and they never turned back. So then when he met my mom, his third wife, me and my brothers were born, like I said, here in Israel. Myself and my twin were born in Eilat, and then we moved to the home up in the north at some point, and then my dad just made these very long commutes.
So your dad was in the military, the U.S.
U.S. in the Navy, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about
in
it.
the submarines.
Yeah, this is all making sense. All that math is starting to add up a little bit.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
multiple wives and they're going around. Seventh group. I'm not calling you out, but
So yeah, and so that's actually what brings us here, brings me here, right? Technically, I did not merit to be born into the Jewish family and be part of the Jewish people. I didn't get that, but I did merit to be born into a home that was very much in love with Israel, and that's what my dad raised us with: is a super love for Israel, a super Zionistic. You're going to defend this land. This is God's people. This is God's land, and that's what I grew up with, combined with, of course, Jewish learning, Jewish schools. All my friends are Jewish, and most of them are on one level or other are very religious to a certain level, right? Mm-hmm. And so I got to go to synagogues and holidays and everything, what you get here, right? And it was just this odd thing. I was this oddball kid. I mean, there's nobody else like me where I grew up. And I always saw myself as, no, I'm like with you. I'm the same as y'all. I'm not different, okay? And long story short, like I said, eventually I ended up in foster care because my twin brother died at the age of 2. We had a home smoke fire, and the smoke inhalation killed him. I was saved by miracle, literally.
How old are you at that?
2 years old, just over 2 years old. And my younger brother, who's 2 years younger, is just born, and he actually saved our lives because he was crying because he probably needed to get nursed. And my mom had called our neighbors who helped raise us, Yaakov and Lillian, the Moroccan couple that are they're like my second parents. And Yaakov comes over and he knows our house layout, thank God, because he ends up pulling us out of the smoke that was killing us. And like I said, my twin brother perished, unfortunately. I got saved by total miracle. I was supposed to be a vegetable or die as well, is what the doctors told my dad when he finally made it back from being deployed somewhere in the south, somewhere I think even in Egypt at the time. I believe it was like Sharm el-Sheikh or something like that, mm-hmm. in his work with the U.S. government. And so that tragedy hit us. It ruined our family eventually. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I ended up in foster care, in Haifa. The parents, the father was the former professor at Fordham University in the performing arts, and essentially he's the guy that discovers Denzel Washington, right?
Wow.
So I grew up with with somebody who's like super intellectual, super smart, and so is the wife also. She's also been to higher learning, what have you. And so they're the ones that actually are part of the reason why I speak good English, because they're like, udders is what's on a cow. And I'm like, right, not them utter people, but other people.
Yeah.
And so they help, shape for me in my teenage years when we ended up with them. So I was 13, my brother was 11. We ended up in foster care. Got married to a Swedish girl. Her parents are from Sweden, and then they lived in America for a while, and then they came to Israel.
Is she Jew? Did she come here to visit?
She came to visit with her family.
Okay.
Her dad is actually a well-known Christian pastor at the time. I think they had the largest evangelical church in Sweden, in Gothenburg. So he left all that behind, went to the States to translate a book for some preacher in Mississippi. And so this white family, right, they're in Mississippi, and they're in the heart of all the racial wars there, that they learn real quickly that there's a huge difference between the white community and the black community.
Welcome to Mississippi.
Yeah. And the white community expects them, of course, to be, hey, you guys are white folk. You're on our side. And they're like, no. We're actually, we believe that, you all need to get along. And they didn't like that. So any case, so my father-in-law was very influential in actually helping bring reconciliation between whites and blacks in Columbus, Mississippi, actually. So long story short, so my wife has an American accent as well, but she's Swedish, and also grew up in a Christian home that's evangelical, loves Israel, and he came here to write about Israel internationally to a Christian audience about what's really happening. So we meet up and we get married, and then I go to Bible school in Pensacola, Florida.
So you're not Jewish?
I am now.
You are not? So
yeah, I'm getting there.
Judaism.
I did years later.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I go.
What age?
At the age, so I'm 19 at this time.
Okay.
We get married March of 2000, and I wanted to go explore my Christian roots.
Of course.
And I go to study theology. I get super disappointed because I have more of a Jewish mindset, and it just was really bugging me.
And you're in the thick of it with the Bible Belt, right?
And I'm in the Bible Belt, and it was a great experience for me. It was really good time. It was one of the best schools, I think, and in many ways, and learned a lot there. But again, I still came back with questions, right? I still came back with like, no, this I don't like, something's not fitting here. There's more here. And then I started my military service. I joined in March of 2000. March in 2003. Excuse me. So March of 2003. Originally,
just right after the second Intifada.
Correct. Originally, I was supposed to be in '99, but I made a special request to get out because my mom had just passed away, my biological mom, and I wanted to go see my father, who at this time is a really old man, who's also an alcoholic, who's in a special old folks home that are, keep him medicated because, a lot of damage to his body and mind.
Yeah.
So I actually went with the combined desire to help my father to be with him towards the end of his years. And I just made a special request. And so that's why I delayed my service in like about 4 years, right?
Yeah.
So I start my service 3 years married, post Bible school, and it's like I'm older than my platoon commander, right?
Oh, sure. I know about that.
and so that's what kickstarts my military service, March of 2003, and I'm burning to get back to Israel because of many things, like you pointed out. I'm seeing the Intifada happen online. Right, I'm seeing all this news coming in from Israel, and it's just burning my blood.
Let me stop you right there. Let me ask you something. So during this time you were living in America,
in Pensacola, Florida.
Were you a citizen, an American citizen at this time?
Yes, because my parents are American. Yeah.
Did you at that moment?
I actually wasn't an Israeli citizen at this time.
Oh, really?
Is the funny part.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. So during this time, so you were like kind of
Yeah.
You almost weren't a citizen.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was a Toshav Keva, actually. I was a Toshav Keva status because of my parents.
Okay.
And what I didn't realize is that at the age of 18, you can request citizenship.
Mm.
And I never knew that I was, like I said, I grew up as an Israeli.
Yeah.
I never knew I was different in any way. And so that...
what made you choose the Israeli army over the U.S. Army?
Great question. Well, because, like I said, I grew up patriotic for Israel, patriotic for the state of Israel. This is my homeland. Also an American patriot. So my nephews, for example, my nephew and my nieces, they ended up also serving in the military. My sister's kids.
Okay.
Her son ended up in West Point, and then he graduated West Point, and then he ended up in his last deployment in the Pentagon. So, I mean, we are very much a military family.
Was this before 9/11?
He recruited, when
No,
did he recruit?
I'm talking about for you, when you decided to go back. You said 2000.
Correct. So just before 9/11, there's the Antifada like you're talking about. And it's just really hard for me, right? Because I'm like, I should be serving right now, but I'm here and I'm torn, right, between family and my greater family, which is Israel.
Yeah.
And like you point out, I mean, I could have chosen to go, Green Berets, Navy SEALs, whatever. That's super cool, of course. Definitely had the opportunity to do that. But I wanted to, on the battlefield, I wanted to defend the state of Israel, ultimately, if I had a choice between the two. And that's essentially what kind of solved that deal for me in my mind,
Yeah.
And so we came back. I tried to get back into military service, like being in the system, because they actually out-process you after about a year. So all your records are erased, and then I have to do what we know as the Tzav Aleph, or whatever it's called, when you first get called up. The Tzav Rishon, it's when you get called up, and they basically process you as far as your mathematics skills, your Hebrew skills, so linguistically, whatever. And then they
I remember taking that test.
Yeah, and then they give you what's called a kaba, like in other words, how intellectual you are, like you are an Air Force dude, or are you an Army guy?
I remember that process as a lone soldier, man. That was that was an experience for sure.
So at this time, and that's cool that you said that you came here experiencing as a lone soldier. I was both a lone soldier when I got recruited, and and married. So on the social scale there, or the social benefits I was supposed to get, I actually missed out on both. They did not recognize me as a lone soldier, even though both my parents at this point when I got recruited had passed away. My mom in '99, my dad in 2002, and I got recruited, like I said, in March of 2003. So I'm considered a lone soldier on paper, and I'm married, 3 years married at this point. I mean, I had a lot of fun, trying to, work through all the logistics of the military nonsense. And
guys, by the way, I served in both militaries, U.S. Army and the Israel Defense Forces. Let me tell you, there's nonsense in both. IDF is on another level of nonsense.
Lots of red tape.
It's the Middle East.
It's the Middle East.
It's the Middle East, and there's nothing really much you can do about it other than just annoy them.
Yeah, stay motivated.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the hardest thing, right? So I came in super motivated, unlike everyone else. They're like, dude, you're American. I'm like, yeah. You should go to America. I'm like, I just came from there. I'm not looking for a future in America, guys. Like, this is my home. This is my land. This is where I'm going to build a family. So that was a lot of the talks with, my fellow soldiers of like, just get the hell out of here, dude. And I'm like, nah.
So let me ask you something. During that time when you joined, you're kind of in this weird, like, okay, like I'm an American, but I'm also Israeli.
Yeah.
Are you speaking fluent Hebrew at this time?
Yeah.
Okay,
sure.
so it's a little bit easier for you to like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not like you, where you're trying to learn Hebrew and all that. Yeah.
I gave up on learning it. I was just following everybody else. Like, okay, we're getting yelled at, and they're all running that way.
Right.
Until you follow a retard, like, and I'm following this guy. He doesn't even know what he's doing.
Yeah.
And then I figure out he doesn't know what he's doing because I'm like, Mato say.
Yeah.
That's like one of the only words I know. And he's like, I need to live there. Like,
And then we call that a shokist. I don't
And-
know if you have that in your U.S. military. What's a shokist?
What's a showcase?
A guy who just doesn't know what's happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was,
Blank face.
yeah. So he ended up getting kicked out, and I'm like, he's the only English speaker,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I'm like, okay, well now I'm screwed.
Yeah.
I'm the only guy that I could communicate with,
Yeah.
and I'm following around when they said Shevazuz, which means seven. You have seven. Shevshnil, yeah. So you have like a few seconds to like get all your gear on and like all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And so like I'm following my friend, but my
Yeah.
friend is dumb. So like my friend that is speaking English is dumb, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well, damn, you're fucking up, and like
Yeah.
I'm trying to be like a good soldier here. Anyways,
No, I
just
didn't.
thought that
I didn't
was-
have that experience.
Yeah,
At all.
I just thought that was funny. But back to my question.
Yeah.
Was there lone soldiers during your time when you first
Oh, sure.
joined? And
Yeah.
you spoke perfect English, so did you help them out at all? And
In my unit specifically, actually, in my platoon, I don't think we had any lone soldiers that I can recall.
what was your platoon? What did you?
I was the one who was supposed to be the lone soldier,
Oh yeah.
and just didn't get recognized as such.
When you enlisted, what did you enlist as? If you don't mind me asking.
So I got recruited to the Givati battalion.
Okay.
Start with Givati.
Givati is a infantry battalion. They got
Yeah.
the purple berets.
Yeah, the purple beret guys. If you see soldiers, Israeli,
They've been getting after it in Gaza, by the way.
they are. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
A lot of my
And
good
we-
friends are in Givati, and I fucking love them.
Dude, and I'll also want to later on we'll talk about that,
Yeah.
and I'll mention actually one of a very close friend of mine and how that relates to Givati.
Definitely get into that. Yeah.
But so I recruited really when Givati was at the height of the war against the Intifada in the Gaza Strip, and trying to create security and safety for the Jewish communities in the Gaza Strip. So before the pullout from Gaza, you had Jewish communities inside the Gaza Strip,
Yep.
pockets of Jewish communities, and essentially the responsibility for Givati was protect these Jewish communities and to eliminate the terrorist threats from the Gazans who came mainly from the Palestinian Muslim Arab communities. And I think one thing that's really important to understand here too, Gaza 20 plus years ago is not the Gaza that I witnessed now in the post October 7th.
I definitely want to get
war,
into that. I definitely want to
you
get
know?
into that. It's good to talk to somebody that was around for that time.
Yeah.
I talked to a settler the other week about that. And what a lot of people miss out, they don't understand that there was Jewish people living in Gaza, and we pulled everybody out, even their grave sites. The people who were buried in Gaza, the Jewish people who were buried in Gaza, we pulled their dead bodies out of their graves and we brought them back into Israel for peace. Unfortunately, we were met with thousands of rockets. We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But Egypt and Jordan were able to keep a peace deal, and that just shows that Israel is a country of its word. And when we say we want a peace deal, we want a peace deal. Egypt and Jordan are perfect examples. Anyways, go along.
Yeah. And so I got to experience Gaza at the heat of just all of the conflict at that time of the Second Intifada. And, we were running into professional snipers from the Chechens. So they had Chechen recruits that they paid money to take out based on your rank. So there was one of the common problems we ran into is that our officers were getting taken out, specifically targeted by these snipers because they get paid by the rank, right? So I mean, like, we're in like this intense Gaza reality for those who are fighting in Givati, but then the rest of the military, like the paratroopers and the Nahal and the Golani, they're serving in Hebron or Jenin and Shechem or what have you, or Nablus for those who don't know that Shechem and Nablus is one and the same. So they're serving in the West Bank, what the world calls the West Bank or Judea Samaria, and their reality on the battlefield was way different than our reality.
It is a lot
Every
different, yeah.
every mistake that we made, we paid for it in blood, and that's essentially where we learned to be the best soldiers in the military and the best in urban warfare and in essentially not making those small mistakes that you make as a soldier, what we call chaylut prat. It's those small things. There's difference between life and death on the battlefield here. Whereas, like, I was shocked when I went to commander school, which is basically your NCO school. It's not, you don't become an officer, but it's
basic leaders course is what we got. And
basic leaders courses in the States.
Basic leaders course, and then that's for E5, which I was. I got out as an E5 sergeant, and then after that, if you want to go E6 staff sergeant, you go to ALC, which is advanced leaders course.
Right.
It's honestly a joke, but like
sure,
it's another conversation.
But what's cool, because I've been trying to figure out what's the equivalent in the States and in the U.S. military. And
you have
so
a photographer telling you how to do land navigation, which I'm like, who are you, like, to tell me land? I'm recon.
Yeah.
You're gonna tell me how to do land nav?
Right.
You've never even fucking seen a map in your life. Who are you? Tell me land nav.
Epic. And so I get sent into what's known as Kulsmaki Mugdam, so early commander course. Go off to there, and I start my commander course, do the whole thing, and right at the end of towards the graduation was the what's known as the Nason Nagmashim. In 2004, we had APCs for the Givati battalion and the special, what's it called, the explosives unit?
Yahalom?
Not Yahalom, but it's the Givati's version of Yahalom.
Oh, they do have an engineering unit.
Yeah, it's called Khan. Yeah. So is it like, I don't know what you call it in the U.S. military
Combat
term.
engineers.
Combat engineers.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have in Givati we have your reconnaissance unit. That's the where everybody wants to get to, the Sayeret. And then you have the anti-tank unit, Orev, and then you have the combat engineers. So the two APCs just essentially evaporate because they're carrying about 200 kilos, I believe it was, about 200 kilos of explosives, high, like, plastic explosives, like the good stuff.
Yeah.
And they have that in their APC. They just finished operations in Rafiah. And they're driving along the Philadelphia road between Egypt and Gaza, and they're making their way back from their operation. They have the head of the head of Givati, the head officer, right, of Givati, is in that convoy. As they're coming out, they get hit with an RPG. The RPG hits the APC that happens to have the explosives in it, and it chain reacts and then hits the other APC next to it. Both of them blow up, killing, I believe it was like 6 soldiers in one time.
What year is this?
This in 2004.
Okay.
And then they just evaporate. So we're 3 days from graduating. We just finished breakfast. We're starting to do the whole marches and all that junk,
Yeah.
practicing that, and we're all happy because like we passed. And it was a hell of a course. I mean, like, they put us through hell.
Oh, hey, I just want to say something. So these marches, he's really sugarcoating it right now. They're intense. You're going through marches in the Negev desert. You're seeing Bedouins with their camels, and it is honestly one of the most beautiful things you'll ever see, and one of the most brutal physically things you'll ever do.
Yeah.
I saw people just seizure up on the ground, and then a Toyota will come and pick them up, put them in the truck bed, and take off.
This is at night?
No, this is during the day.
During the day, okay.
We were doing
so
a day
heat.
march.
So it was a heat.
It was a heat.
Because I've also had the other, where a dude.
Oh, we did a night one too. We started off at 10 p.m. at night.
He got hypothermia in the desert.
Yeah, so we started our last one was at 10 p.m. and we finished at 2 p.m.
Yeah.
I thought it was never going to end. I was like, what is this? What is this nonsense? And then we're also walking next to Gaza border. I'm like, where are we? I have no idea. I'm just going to keep going, just one foot in front of the other. And
just don't follow the dumb guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. The dumb guy ended up. Good thing at that point he was already out.
Poor dude.
I was following my Mempe, my sergeant.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's funny that you bring that up because, man, I will never forget that. And that honestly, before I joined the U.S. Army, when I joined the U.S. Army, I would think of that exact moment when I was going through a hard time, and I'd be like, "This is nothing.
Yeah.
Like, this is nothing. Like, I went Lila Levon, which is white nights,
Yep,
and you
the White
stay up.
Nights.
You stay up for a few days. It's like 24 to 48 hours,
Yep,
and
yep.
and then you do like a 20-mile march, and
Yeah.
like there's units that even do longer than that.
Yeah.
So for me, it was my first time. I was like, damn.
Oh yeah.
Damn. And then you had the stretcher and everything, and if you don't got enough bodies, you're putting boulders on there and you're putting rocks on there. And so like that made me stronger, not just physically, but mentally. And it did take a toll on my back a little bit, but at the same time, when I joined the U.S. Army, I was able to lead like a real leader.
Yeah.
And I could thank the IDF for that. And my drill sergeants also were like, they actually really respected me for being in the IDF beforehand.
That's awesome.
But so I want to dive in. I want to dive in real quick. I don't want me to cut you off on that, but because we're talking about combat now and we're talking about tactics.
Yeah.
Can you describe your overall experience? During this recent conflict. I know you've been through. You said you joined in 2003.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've seen 2006. What's his face? I can't believe I forgot his
Second
name.
Lebanon War.
Absolute legend, lone soldier, paratrooper Michael.
Oh yeah.
Michael, what's his
kid's
name?
Awesome. Michael Levine, I believe.
Michael Levine.
Right.
He was.
He actually went that story where he climbs through the window.
Let's
into
talk
the
about Michael
recruitment
Levine
office.
real quick. He's a legend, guys.
Yeah.
So he's an
Super cool
American
kid.
from the East Coast. I think New Jersey, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, New Jersey boy.
Yeah, he's
Jersey
a New
boy.
Jersey guy, and Michael Levine. Shout out, rest in peace, Michael
Yeah.
Levine. He's a lone soldier. He honestly led the way for lone soldiers like myself and others. You hear about him, right? If you're going to be a lone soldier and you join the IDF, you're going to know who Michael Levine is. He's a legend.
Yeah.
And anyway, so he was in the Second Lebanon War during 2006.
Yep.
Tell me what you were there as well.
Yep.
Tell me anything you've heard about him, or and also obviously the Second Lebanon War. Let's get into that a little bit.
So I didn't get the privilege of meeting Michael. He recruited into the paratroop battalion, and actually he fought to get into combat, and part of his legend. And to me, these are kids that I like to highlight, and I'm teaching my kids. I actually have a book with a bunch of stories of Jewish heroes, and he's one of those. He's on the cover of the book, and I'll get you the name of the book. I love that book, and so my kids know who Michael Levine is. The kid's amazing, who comes here, barely speaks Hebrew, and that's part of the reason actually they won't let him get into combat, because you have to have a certain level of proficiency in Hebrew so that you can basically communicate on comms, right? Of, bad guy here, this, that,
I had to fight my way in.
Yeah, and so the language barrier was a battle for him. Physically, I don't think he had any issues there. And so he just kept fighting, and he's a lone soldier. He's here by himself. He's really pushing to get recruited, and specifically into he wanted to be in the paratroopers, and he finally makes it. But the funny story is that you can't get to speak to the military recruitment officer who's in charge of the recruitment office to where you live, because it's based on where you live. There's an office and a representative, an officer, high up officer that's sitting there and is in charge of all the recruits for that geographical area. So he's somewhere in the north because he goes to Tiberias, which is the same one that I recruited through, because I was living on the Golan Heights at the time.
That's where I was too. Yeah.
And so he goes in there, and so when I hear the story, I can picture the recruitment office, because that's the one I got processed through as well. And he doesn't have an official documentation to get in, because at this point we're all civilians until the day of our actual recruitment date.
Yeah.
So you can't just walk into any military base, and even if you're in the military, you can't just walk into any military base as well. Long story short, the kid breaks into the recruitment office. He climbs through one of the windows, gets into the building, gets to the main person that's in charge, and basically says, "Hey, I'm here, and I want to get recruited." And And
by the way, that's a very Israeli way to get things done here.
Yeah, but he's an American. That's the thing. It's so I have so much respect for this kid, because he had some serious chutzpah, and
Israelis don't even know that much.
and I mean, I don't think I would have done that, but I did fight very hard to get back in to the recruitment process, and the fact I was married. Actually, they wanted me to be a jobnik, a non-combatant, And
and the translation to American military, a jobnik, like Gregory Stoker, the guy in one of my videos, a few of my videos that you guys have seen, got a lot of views. Gregory Stoker, he couldn't make it in infantry, so he ended up being a jobnik, which is in American terms pogue.
a pogue.
Yeah.
And so I was like, no, that ain't gonna happen. I am not gonna. I was like, if I'm recruiting, it's combat, period. So that's actually what barred me from getting into special forces was my, my status, and it pissed me off so bad. I was heartbroken. I wanted to be either Shayetet or Shaldag or something along those lines.
Shayetet is the Israeli Navy SEAL. Shaldag is like they're a jack of all trades, really, if you think about it. They're your combat controllers. They're your deep reconnaissance. I mean, the list goes on. Go ahead and Wikipedia those guys.
They're equivalent to the SAS, I would say.
Yeah.
Very similar.
They're one of my tour guides when Birthright was a Shaldag guy, and you would never guess it. Like
that's right. And
smart man. Very smart guy.
That's right.
But anyways, go on.
That's what I love about those dudes. They're exactly. You're not going to know. They don't look like a total badass. So the funny thing is, the guy who prepares me for my recruitment, he's a Shaldag guy, and he was a former officer there, and he tried everything to try to get me in to just get to do the tryouts. That's all I wanted. I said, just let me try out, like, please. Yeah. And they're like, no, because at the time I'm not Jewish, which is people don't know this, but only Jews. I mean, it's not. People might go, oh, what, was this a racist, military? But the concept is this: is if you're Jewish and you have roots here, you have family here, then you have a whole backing. You can't just be someone from the outside, because they also, the way they look at special forces here is you want to have a strong family structure that's going to be that support when you're not, operating. Yeah. And then the other check against me is I'm married, and they're just like, nah, that's not going to happen. So he told me, he says, if you get divorced and if you go through conversion, then I can hook you up.
He said if you get divorced.
Yes. Yeah. And I said, hell no, brother. Hell no. But he beat the hell out of me and got me into top shape. And all of the ruck marches and all the training, the physical stuff was like piece of cake for me. Honestly, I mean, if I'm, except for I think the final march, like you pointed out, it will take the snot out of anybody.
Physical does turn into mental.
It's all mental
at a certain
there.
point.
Yeah.
And a lot of people were like, before there's an 18X contract, right? So 18X contract is for Green Berets, that people who just come out of college or wherever want to join the Green Berets and get all crazy. And they're like, oh, I could pass the physical test. I was an athlete. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not the same. And at the same time, physical turns into mental at a certain point.
Exactly. Exactly.
You're up for days. Sleep deprivation, food deprivation. Yeah. And then you also have to deal with getting ambushed. And like you're it takes a toll on your mental, and a lot of people don't understand that physical does turn into mental during these trainings. Yeah.
So, in any case, that was my dream, of course, shot down. But I was happy to get into the Givati, and the woman there, who's the head officer for the recruitment, she says, "Where's your wife? I want to talk to your wife." And I was like, "Well, she's outside, just like Michael. You can't get in." And she says, he tells the guards, let this woman in, blah, 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 the civilian into the offices. She sits her down. You know what your husband's trying to do? And he's trying to get into combat and all this stuff. It's like, well, actually, he wants to be in Shaldag, but, if you'll give him Givati,
your wife back,
he'll be just as happy, right? And it's like,
shout out to Doron's wife.
Yeah. And so she's like, yeah, I completely support him. And absolute shout out to my wife, because let me tell you, after this war, and I think that's also something, like, a lot of people say, and I don't like it, they'll say, Doron, you're a hero and stuff like that. And listen, I appreciate people's support. I appreciate them saying, that what we do is, the heroes. But let me tell you something. The real hero in my family is my wife. My wife has been through thick and thin, through every war since 2003 with me. I've been on the front lines of some of the most horrible fighting that Israel has had. And she puts up with that. And I can't imagine what it's like to be in her shoes, knowing and not knowing if you're going to get that call, if you're going to get that knock on the door, and your husband's gone, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I can tell you, this war, this is the first time, I would say, when I went out to war, that I knew, okay, this is it. This is very possible. I'm not coming back. and I need to make every home visit count, every moment with my children count. And
Let's speak about that a little bit.
yeah,
You've been here for a while, man. That's one of the main reasons. Like, I am so thankful that you came onto my podcast, man. Like, you fit the definition of this of Desert Dialogues specifically because I'm getting real people with real life experience, other than people who act like it. And you know what I mean. So you
Yeah.
definitely fit that definition. And I want to ask you, what was different about this? I was here on October 7th. I'm sure you were here
Yeah.
on October
Yeah.
7th. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
no,
Ever.
no.
And I thought I flew here on October 4th, actually. My birthday was
Yeah.
on October 4th. And so I came from Prague. I was just partying in Prague. I came back here. I'm going to Reichman. I'm finishing my degree to polish off my resume.
Yeah.
I'm staying at my buddy's place. And I wake up to missiles and booms and everything like that. I'm like, well, back in Israel. Another day. It's like I never left. I haven't
Yeah.
been here since 2020, and so I'm back. I'm like, here we go. But it wasn't the same. It was astronomically different.
Yeah.
And we're gonna get into that. But from your point of view, you've seen it. You were here during the Second Intifada. You were here during the Second Lebanon War. The 2014 war with when they did it on a way smaller scale.
2009, you skipped one.
2009 was
There was
going
also a Gaza conflict, yeah. Suketan.
Suketan. Oh
Yeah.
man, wow. Okay, yeah,
So-
Suketan.
I've
But
been in every one of these conflicts
Yeah,
since
but
2003.
2014 is the reason why I pointed that
Yeah.
one out was because they kidnapped 3
Correct.
Israelis, and it's on a way smaller scale than what happened on October 7th.
Yeah.
But when they did that in 2014, they kidnapped 3 Israelis and they just dumped their bodies in the West Bank, and we were going through the West
Yeah,
Bank.
the young boys. That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
And that's a whole nother level of evil. What about this most recent October 7th conflict? Like, first of all, what was your initial reaction?
Mhm.
Where were you? And like, how long did it take for you to spin up?
Well, I'll just to give people a little bit of background,
Mm-hmm.
because we just talked about Givati, 2003, 2004, fighting in Gaza, what have you.
Yeah.
I finished commander course. I end up in the Parchatsim, search and rescue, and then so I have that as an extra experience of search and rescue and what that's all about.
Yeah.
And then our unit ended up doing a lot of the breaching. We had the special tools that help breach doors.
So you're in Zikim then?
No, we were
Okay.
actually we were posted at the Megiddo prison, and we took part in the prison watch for the Megiddo prisoners. And Musab Hassan Youssef, the Green Prince, he that's where he ended up imprisoned. So for people who want to kind of connect some dots there too,
A lot of dots to connect in this.
yeah,
one.
a lot of fun facts, right? And so I also got to experience firsthand how the terrorists treat each other, because I mean, when you see how they treat each other in prison, you're like, wow.
Oh, well, let me know. I'm interested. I didn't know anything.
Well,
this is deeper.
Well, okay, so I'll give you an example. Again, I just wanted to give a little bit of background too for folks before we jump into
Yeah, I didn't know anything.
what
about
happened
this.
October 7th. So I'm there, and I hate it because I'm
What
like,
year is this?
this is in 2004.
Okay.
So I'm hating this. Okay, I wanted to be in Givati. I wanted to be in Gaza. I wanted to go back to Givati, but I got spit out, so to speak, into the system to where basically filling holes in the military for commanding positions.
That's because you became an officer?
No, because I became a sergeant essentially, right?
Oh, okay.
And so they're plugging holes, and I've never heard of search and rescue. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I'm like, it's home front command. Like, bro, like I am not home front command material. Like, I am a pipe hitter, knuckle dragger, whatever you want to call it. I mean, I'm the dude that wants to be fighting the enemy. I definitely don't want to be in the home front command. And so I feel degraded. I'm a sharpshooter at this point. I have a little bit of experience in fighting in Gaza, also fighting in Hebron. I did some posting in Hebron and in Shechem and what have you during the commander course. And like I said, that's where I saw the worlds of difference between how these guys operate here I'm like, you're gonna get us killed. You just walk in the middle of the road here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm like, I'm used to Gaza. Like, you know, like you're clearing the way. Like, you're gonna pay a penalty if you do it wrong, clearing streets and houses and whatever.
100%.
So, any case, so I have all that, and then I'm stuck here, and I'm just like, no way. And I'm like, okay, what is this all about? All right. And so I put my heart into it. I'm like, fine, you know, I'm responsible for these young soldiers, and I immediately become their sergeant because the most senior commander of the non-commissioned officers, he just gets released, and I literally take his post. And I get the best division of soldiers, the best makhlaka, the best soldiers, and I'm super happy. I'm super stoked, and I'm like, that's it. You know, I'm going to take these kids to as high of a level as I can and show them leadership through example, embrace the suck, okay? I don't want to be here. They don't want to be here, some of them, because it's the first platoon, literally the very first platoon of the Palkhatsim, of the search and rescue units.
Wow.
And so they got mixed messaging. Some were told they were going to be jobniks. Some were told they're going to be in combat.
That's a horrible thing.
And so I'm dealing with these soldiers, right? Well, I also don't want to be here. And we're a hodgepodge of, you know, I'm from Givati, this guy's from the Tzanchanim, that one's, or the paratroopers, this one's from Golani, and it's a mix of also leadership. And it's like, all right, let's put all this junk aside and just be a leader. And so I end up there, and then long story short, I also end up during my first reserve duty positioned on the northern border, part of the Northern Command. And that's my where I end up doing my final posting before I end up to leading to what happens in this last war on October 7th. And so Second Lebanon War, the division that I'm in the north, the soldiers, the reservists that were killed and then also kidnapped and taken by Hezbollah, they were part of our, like, we were switching them out.
Wow.
Like, you know, like, so it was very close to home, right?
Yeah.
It's like we're switching them out, and this whole thing happens, a whole war breaks out, and this is my first reserve period of reserve duty, and I'm like,
As a leader too.
yeah, well, this time I'm nothing, right?
Oh, okay.
Because that's the thing. When you get into reserve duty, you go back to like a private, right? You go back as a normal soldier, right? And then the senior,
I was not aware of that.
yeah, the senior soldiers, they fill in all the commanding positions. So I literally am just a normal soldier at this point, right? I'm back to normal guy, sharpshooter.
That's weird.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I'm like, hey, you know, I love being a sharpshooter. Like, just give me an AR with an ACOG on it, and point me in the direction of the enemy, and you know, we'll take down some heads. You know,
Yeah.
that's my attitude.
Honestly, it's less responsibility as well and less paperwork.
Yeah, but post all that, I get pushed into being a commander, like the lower commander, not a sergeant, but regular commander of a company of soldiers,
Okay.
of a kita. And I'm like, all right, cool, because they're like, hey, you know, you got leadership skills, and that's kind of the funny thing is my first reserve duty, they're promoting me and like, hey, we want you to be part of our, you know, part of the commanding staff. And I was like, okay, guys, I'm with you, cool, whatever. Like, wherever you need help, I just want to, you know, give my all. And then I get eventually in the next recruitment of the next reserve duty, just after that, I become a sergeant in the platoon that I'm in. And so I'm stoked, I'm happy. We're doing our reserve duty as it comes and goes. And so 2006, 2009, 2014, all these wars, right? And I'm just like, you know, something's got to give.
Yeah.
You know, Second Lebanon War, we left not super satisfied that we really annihilated Hezbollah. And here we see that happening now recently with the outbreak of war during the October 7th, with Hezbollah attacking simultaneously from the north, and are still now doing that, completely ransacking the north. Most of the north is evacuated. So people, for your audience, okay, we're 5 months plus into the conflict, they're still evacuated from their homes.
And during this time, let's jump back to Michael Levine real quick.
Yeah.
Kind of went off the rails on that one with Michael Levine,
Yeah.
absolute legend for all lone soldiers like myself.
Yeah.
Was he killed at that moment? So from what I'm tracking is Michael Levine was on his leave. So as a lone soldier, we get leave after our training. Once we're done with our training, we get a month of leave. I forgot the name of it. It's a Hebrew word.
Yeah.
Milchedet, yeah. So you go on a Milchedet, and then you get a month of leave back home. And he was at a bar in Philadelphia, and he was watching it on the news.
Wow.
And
Wow.
he was like, I need to go back home. So you get a month leave, and he
Yeah.
wasn't even a month into his leave, and he was like, I need to go back.
Yeah.
Like he said, he was dedicated. He
Yeah.
broke through a window to get drafted.
Yeah.
But at this point, he was already in, and then he saw it on the news while he was at a bar in Philadelphia. Or someone's going to correct me. I guarantee it. It might be Philadelphia or New Jersey. It was
Sure,
one of
sure.
the. Is Philadelphia? So
Yeah.
he flew back immediately. They said, no, you can't go back to your battalion for some
Right,
reason.
right.
And then he was like, no, fuck that. You're going to take me there. Absolute badass.
Because everybody's already spun up. and
Yeah,
they're
everybody's
they're
already spun up.
yeah,
Everyone's already
yeah.
there. But he ended up you just got to, out here in Israel, or even the Middle East in general, you just got to
Yeah.
keep
You gotta
pushing
be
it.
persistent, yeah.
You got to be consistent, and especially with you have the bazaars in Jerusalem. You have to be consistent because then you get deals. But he ended up going back to his unit in Lebanon. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
he was sniped. But hell, he went out like a warrior, and that
He did.
and the thing about it is like people are like, oh yeah, like Israeli soldiers are dying left and right, blah blah. Hey, we signed up. We're ready
right.
to go. We're not, out in the streets of America and Canada protesting. We are here.
Yeah.
Over 300,000 reservists came back. And that's not even including the non-Jews that just came here to support,
Correct.
whether it was with food, uniforms,
Yep.
the essentials, pretty much that help support it. So like there's over 300,000 people that came back.
Yeah.
How many people came back to support the Palestinians? No, they didn't come back. They stayed where they were at, and
they're ruining the countries
they're
they're in.
ruining
Yeah.
the countries they're in.
With protests and stuff.
They think boycotting Starbucks. I think we had one Starbucks, like you said, we talked earlier. Like I've never seen a Starbucks cup my entire time, 8 years, back and forth. I've never seen one Starbucks.
Yeah.
So supposedly there's one in the West Bank.
There was one in Hebron, yeah, but it's not Starbucks. I forget the name of it, but it's like they're using the Starbucks logo,
Yeah.
right?
See,
and
that's
then
what they do out here.
and then the name is slightly off. I forget how
They
it goes.
make up like they have
but
an
it's
Arab fried
hilarious.
chicken. They have an AFC
Yeah.
Arab fried chicken
Yeah.
that they replaced for KFC.
Yeah,
Kentucky
yeah.
Fried Chicken. But going back to Michael Levine, like
Yeah.
he said, like we were talking about, he's a legend for that reason. He came back and he died like a man. Whether
Yeah.
you disagree with Israel, whether you think Zionists are bad, that is a warrior. That is a warrior 100% all the way around 360 degrees, and you can't deny that. I mean, he died for what he believes in. So
That's the warrior spirit of when you have a way out.
motivated me as a lone soldier.
Yeah, when you have a way out, you can take it. And I had that multiple times.
Mhm.
I didn't have to serve. I did. I then later got my citizenship automatically because of my military service. And that's when I discovered that I had this oddball, problem of like, oh, I'm not a citizen. I'm like, holy crap, why not? And and then later, my wife and I, by the way, we did Jewish conversion, and that was through the military and through the Palchats, the search and rescue. One of my soldiers went to this conversion course. We have a special conversion course in the military. It's like a fast-track conversion course called Nativ. And essentially, it's for Jews who are Jewish because of the father, but not because of the mother.
Ooh, I
So
know
there's
a guy
Jewish
like that.
identity, right? And they grew up Jewish, but halachically, they're not Jewish. And
I
and
disagree with that. That's a big conversation.
of course. But this is essentially who created the course. That was the motive of like, listen, this isn't right. These kids serve in the military. They have Jewish.
It's in their
one
blood.
it's in their blood. One of the parents is Jewish. Their relatives are Jewish, at least one half. And it's like they've laid down their lives for this country, but yet they're like a second-class citizen.
Mm-hmm.
And where does this play in? For example, is you can't get married to a Jew.
Yeah.
So you're not halachically Jewish because your dad's Jewish, your mom's not. I meet let's say myself, and I meet a Jewish girl. I can't marry her. The rabbis won't allow me to get married unless I go through conversion. We didn't have that issue, but when I went through the course, and I thank God for the girl that went to the course. She was one of my soldiers. She gave my name to the heads of the course, and she said, "You would like that. You're into all that. Israel, Bible, theology. She's like, that will fit you." And I said, "All right, cool." So I went total out curiosity of like, what does actually Judaism teach? Because I know what they taught me in Bible school, and I know what I grew up with, and the word on the street, so to speak, of what Judaism is. And when I actually studied Judaism in the course on a very low, the first 2 months, it's 6 months, but the first 2 months is like an introductory course. It's real simple, but it's like everything started to click. All the questions I had from Bible school were clicking to me here in the course. I'm like, I'm getting biblical answers for my biblical questions, my tachlis questions about God and responsibility. Like, what does God want from me? This is something funny with Christianity, you know, especially if you're in an evangelical world. They don't have such a thing as commandments. They'll say, yeah, we believe in the 10 Commandments, but it's not like obligatory like it is in Judaism. You know, the do's and don'ts, right? The positive, negative commands.
There's so many rules in this.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
No.
And for me, that was like the frustrating thing is like, what does God want from me? I need structure. I want to know what is God. I mean, He's God, and just like I have house rules in my house,
Yeah.
He has house rules for the universe, for His, you know, for the earth, for Israel, for, you know, and that just really drew me. And I told my wife, and thank God she decided to continue the process, because then that would have been an issue, because you're not allowed to do the conversion by yourself if you're married. So the spouse has to go along essentially, or else it's a no-go. Like the rabbis, they don't like that because it's breaking up a
Still
family.
working on things here.
Yeah.
Still working on things here. There's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, every country has their thing, but you know,
Yeah.
this country was.
Yeah.
We were more. I would argue that we have been too busy with wars to really focus on ourselves. we've been more focused on not getting completely annihilated.
Yeah.
Rather than our internal thing.
But okay, so that's what brought me to where I'm at today. I had a Jewish name growing up, actually.
You have a very Israeli name.
I had a very Israeli name, not Doron. I'm purposely not going to say it because it's part of my trying to keep my pass and places I travel with my
respect it.
American passport, etc.
Yeah.
It's a different name. And so, but the thing was, that was the rabbi's problem. He's like, man, your name is like so Jewish. Like I can't, because again, my dad's this like super Zionist. And so he says, and that's how we came up with Doron, because I thought I didn't have to come up with a name. I thought just my wife, had a Gentile name from what she grew up in Sweden. So she had a name prepped, that she was good. And then the day of, they're like on the spot. They're like, you need a name too. I'm like, what? They're like, yeah, you become a new creation. You become a new person, okay? You're born again, right? Which is where Christians use the term born again. It's a Jewish term, and that's why I tell a lot of the Christians, I'm like, that term is a Jewish term for conversion. Like you're a new creation, a new person. And so that was a huge turning point for me and my family, and obviously myself and my wife. And at this point, we were not able to have kids. We weren't able to have kids 10 years into our marriage. We just had our 24th anniversary, by the way. And
Nice. Congratulations.
And so on our 10th year of marriage, we finally had our first child. And our first miracle, because really none of our kids was our 10th, even maybe our 11th year of marriage. But all of our kids are miracle children, because, we did the whole process here in Israel.
Epic.
Yeah, this whole process of the medical system here that is one of the top in the world with, forgetting the term that it's used in English, poriut. And so basically, right, we're not able to have kids, right? And so the cool thing is after the conversion is when we start having kids. And then that settles the whole like nuances there with your children and the whole complexities of conversion, whatever.
Yeah.
It was just very straightforward and simple, just myself and my wife. And then later on, praise God, we were able to have kids and raise them up with the Jewish values and so on. And then that again leads into me getting into the Special Forces community as a reservist. So I end up getting recruited, and I think 20.
You had to go through extra training for that.
I didn't have to go through training for it. It was learning on the job. So
Okay.
so I got into the unit that I ended up with. I like to call us the Dirty Dozen, because essentially everyone in this particular unit.
There doesn't.
Yeah,
I like that.
the
Mike and the boys. Here you go.
yeah. Everyone in my unit has been recruited into the unit by a friend. Like it's a friend brings a friend. And every one of us, I'd say 80% of us work in the executive protection field or formerly work for the Shabak, right? So we're all what we call
Formally.
yes. So
Okay.
so a lot of the guys are former Shabak
You guys
guys.
know what Shabak is? It's like the Israeli FBI. They do domestic. Go ahead and explain. Like, don't get too deep, but like
No, yeah,
they're like more of a domestic. It's the FBI of Israel. There you go.
Yeah.
That's all you're gonna get. You can Google the rest.
cool man. Appreciate it.
But speaking about that, and as a
Wait. Let me open up your beers.
Yeah.
Then you can talk.
we're gonna get into it. Johnny is just the man. He's better than Joe Rogan's Jamie.
100%.
Johnny.
Well,
Johnny on the spot.
This
All right.
is what I do professionally.
So-
So-
we're
so-
gonna get into the conflict, but as somebody who, as somebody who, like myself,
Everything good there, Scooter?
No, it's working.
Ah, cool.
It's just froze for a second.
Thank God for editing, right?
Yeah.
So, as somebody who has served, I mean, I've served in 2 militaries, and I taught CQB with my privates.
Yeah.
Which I learned a lot from the IDF actually, and the experience
Sure,
that I got. I want to dive into that real quick, and we're gonna go back, but I have a really important question because a lot of people that follow me, they were my privates before, or I've served with them before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming usually when you're training CQB in buildings that have their walls, their roofs, their hallways, everything in place, right?
Yeah.
And then I imagine that you're throwing a curveball. Johnny, why don't you go? Can you show the picture of Gaza
Yeah.
that I sent you real quick? We're going to throw that up on this. I just want people to get an idea that the CQB, it changes.
Yeah.
So my question is this, like that had to have been a curveball, because I'm sure like when I'm training CQB, I have my walls, I have my roof, I have my doorway, I got my hallways, everything is in place.
Yeah.
But in Gaza, either they're fully demolished or they're half demolished.
Correct.
And when I'm thinking tactically,
Yeah.
right, I'm thinking, okay, I'm putting in my mind, okay, I'm gonna go into this house. I'm gonna have my boy either right, left, button hook it into the house. I'm thinking tactically. I'm planning for it. Gaza, half the buildings are demolished.
Here.
Yep. There's as you can see right here in this picture that Johnny pulled up. Look at that. I mean, that is apocalyptic hellhole right there. So
It
as
is.
a CQB person, I'm like, shit.
Yeah.
I'm putting that
Exactly.
into perspective. I'm like, okay, there's so many openings, sniper positions,
Yeah.
and what a lot of people aren't thinking about is the trip hazards. Now you got trip hazards in the street. You got debris on the floor. You have to worry about your footing.
Yep.
Am I going to eat shit while I'm trying to enter this building and just become a easy target?
Yeah.
So you having the experience that you have, you being there, you've been there, you've done it. How much of a curveball was this with that environment? Not, I'm guessing something you couldn't really train for until you've been in that situation. Go ahead and
Yeah. So like I pointed out, with my background, I was in your regular combat unit, but most advanced as far as the times that we were living in, creating a lot of the CQB standard that most of the military uses today, basically building a lot of those building blocks, but then ended up into the Special Forces community, ended up in a very elite unit with very elite guys. Many of us have 20 plus years. In fact, all of us are more or less 20-year plus veterans. And we have guys from the Shayatit. We have guys from all the Special Forces groups. I can't really give all their names.
Google.
Yeah, but as an example, if anything from Shayatit background to some of the most elite units in the Golani battalions and in the paratrooper and other units that I won't mention, because again, I want to keep most of what my group classified, because a
100%.
lot of what we do is classified, and the background of these guys is as well. So anybody who goes on my social media posts and you're like, oh, look at all these pictures, you're not going to see everything, and it's on purpose. So and that's fine. I'm not classified. Maybe not. Ooh. But what I can tell you is the experience was way different, because I'll tell you this. most of the time when I'm going into war, I'm the most motivated dude in the room, um, the most trained, because I also, like I said, I had ended up in the security world, did security for the Israeli government, and then finally ended up getting into the what's it called, the civilian security, so non-governmental security world, and being in one of the best companies in the country, actually. One of the, if you have tier 1 units, well, this is like the tier 1 of executive protection in Israel, that is not non-governmental, because all of our guys are Shabak, Shayetet, Shaldag, Matkal, like all the tier 1 units, plus everything underneath that.
Yeah.
These are the guys that I basically train in our job, that I lead operations for governments and for CEOs and whatever. So this is like my background. It's like I live, breathe security, and I get to glean from some of the top operators in the country, bar
That's
none.
awesome.
And then I come into a normal battalion, and it's just like, dude, just chillax, right? And so that was like my experience in the north with that battalion. Now I'm with these special forces guys. Now I'm back in Gaza 20 years later. It's been 20 years plus since I was there last operating. And like you pointed out, the reality is 100% different, but the advantage is I'm with guys who are all on the same wavelength. We are all pipe hitters. We all have our specialty that we're bringing to the team, and I can trust these men 100% with my life. Whereas before, I was like, I'm not sure about these guys. So it's going from being the leader in the combat and that everyone's looking to for tactics, what have you, to I'm actually following a lot of what these guys are doing, right? And so we're going in with a very highly qualified team, like I said, with many years of experience. And we actually have been learning from the Ukraine-Russia war, unlike most units going into this war. So you know how in the beginning there were drone attacks, with dropping bombs through drones, or essentially it's a mortar that they drop. And a lot of the military was like, what the hell? We were like, you know what? We're ready for that. In fact, just a few months before the war broke out, we did training, and we trained up the new recruits for my unit in the paratrooper battalion that we were detached to. So we had these guys who were from the Sayeret, from the top most elite of the paratroopers, young kids. None of them have seen war yet. They've been in operations, but not in a full-blown war yet.
Yeah, they're in the West Bank probably.
Yep. And just months before, literally, I was teaching them to look for drone attacks. Like that was baked into the training, that we added our special sauce from my unit that I don't think most of the military hadn't even thought of this.
What do you think? What is your first thing when you're looking for a drone attack? What is your first and most important, obvious detection for a drone?
Well, the first thing I was teaching them is you're not going to hear it. Like,
So
I'm telling you that you're going to get drone attacked right now. Like, I'm letting you know that we're going to throw a drone into this drill where we were training these young guys. So ahead of time. I'm already telling you there's going to be a drone involved in this training exercise. And I didn't tell them, of course, what to expect. I just said, just know that there will be a drone. And I want you, the minute that you hear it and identify it, call it out. And remember when you saw it. So then when we do the after action, discussion, that we can learn from that, right? So I said, so how long did it take for you? Like, how close did it get? Well, it got, whatever close, right? Yeah. Again, I'm not going to point out specificities, but the main thing was, I was like, great. Now add to that a tank, the more advanced APCs. That's basically a tank without a turret. The engine's running. Your Hummer engine is running.
Yeah.
Now identify the drone.
A lot of noise pollution.
Lots of noise pollution.
Yeah.
And like you point out, like if you go into and you see what the city of Gaza looks like, a lot of the Gaza Strip, the urbanized areas, because not all of Gaza is urbanized, unlike the common myth. It's the most compact place in the world. I'm like, well, we drove through a lot of open spaces, so don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. I imagine Jabalaya and Gaza City might have been more compact.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're going through the north. I remember being on the border.
Yeah.
In 2018, and it was pretty fucking open.
Right.
It was.
Yeah. So there's open spaces,
Yeah.
but then you get into the urbanized areas, and yeah, it's pretty compact. Now identify where the sound is coming from. Anybody who's been doing urban warfare knows, like if a shot goes off, you don't know where it's coming from. You just don't know. And so those are kind of things I was trying to prepare them for. Like, guys, you need to be ready for the most uncertainty of uncertainties and being able to react within like going from 0 to 100 in a heartbeat, because you're not going to identify this threat most likely. And that's exactly what happened. So we had the first casualties that came through us from the first drone attack against the soldiers. So if you remember the footage, we see the soldiers in kind of an open field.
Yeah.
And then the drone just drops that bomb, and
that was hard to watch.
That was hard to watch.
I saw that. That goes against every protocol that I.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
You learn from these events.
So you learn from that, and unfortunately, we got to see the carnage of what that did, and then looking at these guys, I said, "You guys remember the training? You remember what we talked about?"
Yeah.
That kid right there that they're putting onto the vehicle and taking his body away, that dead kid right there.
Yeah.
That's the result of it.
100%.
Okay, this is real war, guys. In one of my reels, I think one, maybe two, I like to put the little snippet from the Black Hawk Down film where the guy's doing the, this is my safety. and so that's and so that's essentially who we are, right? Like, we're a seasoned group of guys. We look different than everybody else. All these young kids are looking to us like, who the hell are these guys? Yeah. And we're this is my safety group of guys. Like, we're a different mindset, and people can see it, or these kids can see it, these young warriors. And so there was a huge level of responsibility on us to really instill confidence in these kids, instill whatever wisdom we had without sounding like a cocky old
lead by example
turd. That's like, you don't, lead by example. Like, well, let me tell you, I was here and I was there. Nobody, they're not going to listen to that. But, we would have good conversations of, when there was downtime of like, here's what happened, and just let them talk, and then wait for an opening to be like, well, you guys want to exercise this? You want, So what I would say is that Gaza, this time around, October 7th, number one, we spun up real quick. Like I said, now I'm with the Special Forces community. There's no like waiting for guys to arrive. Like, I'm there the same time everybody else is there.
Yeah.
Right? The closest one to our meeting point is the one that arrives. So we're ready to go. Blackhawks are flying in, taking young soldiers, taking them to the front. And first thing we had to do was actually clear homes in the Jewish side, on the Jewish communities that were hit by the terrorists. So that was the very first thing we had to do, which was surreal.
One of the next topics that I want to talk about.
That was totally surreal.
Yeah. So before we get into Gaza, actually, now that you just reminded me, I actually wanted to ask you something about that, because that is very. A lot of people are asking questions about that. A lot of people are very me personally was thinking, where is the quick reaction force? Where are these people? I am sitting here, like, it's Shabbat, guys. So in Shabbat, there's no public transportation.
And a high holy day.
In a very high holy day. So, there's no public transportation. A lot of people are off of work. A lot of soldiers are not even on their base.
Yeah.
And so, I'm just thinking, and then my base is getting hit. And then my old base. And I'm thinking, my commander's there. He ended up getting 7 bombs.
Oh, yeah, Chof Zikim, right?
Zakim, yeah. So my commander
got hit horrible.
Yeah, so he actually ended up killing 7 Hamas Hajis, and I was like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
He's still alive to this day, thank God.
Praise God, yeah.
So, but I don't mean to cut you off on that, but I just wanted to dive into that before I forget. What is your thoughts on Israel's response time for that? Because I'm not alone on this. A lot of us are thinking, where the fuck was the goddamn quick reaction force? It wasn't even an hour. Like, I was sitting there for 24, 48 hours. I'm thinking, where is everybody? I'm trying to get down there, and I don't even have a weapon at this moment. I'm only 2 days into the country, back from my previous service in the U.S. Army, and I'm just like, where is everybody? It was like almost 24 hours, man. Like, you had Shaldog show up. I know that they lost 5 guys. Then you had a couple guys from Maglan, a couple guys who were new to, but they were in the close proximity though.
Yeah.
So they showed up on their own accord. It wasn't even like a IDF spin up. It was like, I'm an operator. I'm going to show up and like.
Yeah.
And then you had operators actually in these kibbutzim or
Jewish communities.
The Jewish communities in the which a lot of people don't understand. Those Jewish communities that were next to Gaza. By the way, I just want to make this clear. They were the most left-leaning people in Israel. They were peace activists with the Gaza Palestinians.
Correct.
Literally, they were working on peace with the Palestinians, and now they're all dead. So, good luck with that. That just had to be that quick.
No, you're right. It's
what's going on with
ridiculous.
What was going on with the response time? This is a sensitive topic. People want to know though. Like,
Yeah.
I was very, very upset, frustrated.
So, I think everybody is in agreement that the response time was unacceptable. The intelligence community that had intel that something was brewing, but they basically dropped the ball on it. So actually, it was a failure on a lot of different levels. I'm not going to go into all the intricacies,
Of course, yeah.
because I don't want to push and peddle any conspiracy theory. So honestly, I don't know 100%. I just know from people in that world, in the Shabak world, in the Special Forces world, right? And all of us are asking the same question of like, what the hell happened? How is it that the head of the intelligence of the military, combined with the intelligence of Shabak, combined with the response,
Mossad, everything.
yeah, the response of the Special Forces guys, what the heck happened?
Yeah.
So there was a lot of failures. Part of it, and this is, I think, important for the viewers because they think we're monsters and that we just kill discriminately anyone. He was not allowed to fire.
Is that fence right there, as you guys can see on that picture?
Yep,
I don't
yep.
have the picture of the tank right now.
Yeah.
But it's the same fence. That's a bulldozer hitting the
Yeah.
fence. They ended up getting a few tankers, pulled them out, and
Yep.
killed them.
And
right?
and dragged their bodies through the streets.
By the way,
of
they
Gaza.
weren't all just Hamas. They were also Palestinian civilians.
100%. So it was over 3,000 Palestinians who tried to cross the border. Cross the border. They broke through. The tankers who were ready to take a response were not given a green light to fire, to open fire. So that's why they became prey to the onslaught of these Palestinians who just crossed through and what have you. So your first line of defense just got obliterated because of these stupid, rules of engagement, essentially, where the soldier in the field can't make the call, because that's essentially the problem. Is that the way I see it? If I'm in the field, I'm on the front lines, and I have a threat to my personal life, imminent threat to my life, I should be given the green light to act and act accordingly, right? No. We're not stupid. We're not bloodthirsty. We're not trigger happy, and especially guys like in my unit, none of us are trigger happy at all. We all have experience. We've all done our stuff. We're good to go. Like I'm not some young kid who's like needing to get into, and be able to say, yeah, I took down a terrorist. Like I don't need that. I am calculated. We have years of wisdom, experience, etc. And we're just not given the response. It's like the military feels this need, this obsessive need, I would put it like this, over-obsessive need to control the operators in the field, right? To control the ones who are needing to be the ones who are pulling the trigger, unless you're in a tier 1 unit, right? Because that's a different world. I'm not talking about them, okay? So all the tier 1 units, Shayetet, Shaldag, etc., Matkal, they have different rules of engagement.
And the ones that can't be named because I don't even know who they are.
Yeah, so those guys, again, they're the exception. But your normal grunts, okay, your normal like Marine-style units, they're not given the freedom to really use their head, so to speak, right? Yeah. And the rules of engagement are very clear. That a bunch of terrorists are crossing with weapons. Right. They don't need to be firing at you, right? Mm-hmm. Like, why wait until they hit you with an RPG or whatever until you engage? Engage. Yes. Engage. This is a threat. This is an imminent threat, because the next step is the bullets don't have to be flying at me right this moment, right? Because and those little nuances of between the take the preemptive strike before you become toast is the gray area that we're not allowed to operate. And that was the same for us, by the way, even during the missions in Gaza. And I'm going to call out anybody who's claiming there's a genocide going on. My unit has operated in every forward positions of the military. In other words, where the operations are at the forefront, the very tip of the spear where the military is operating, that's where we went. And from the border, like from the border to Israel, and the whole strip. So I've been from crossing the fence into Gaza and crisscrossing all over where the operations were taking place in northern Gaza, Sajia, to Khan Yunis, up until Rafah.
Khan Yunis is like the central southern city of Gaza.
Yeah.
For those who are not aware of the geography of Gaza.
And
a lot of the pro-Palestinians are not aware of the geography of anything, but
right. And so the reality is, okay, we're close to fire. Meaning I'm not allowed to open fire on any threat unless literally, and this is my orders, okay, fired upon and I can identify the threat for multiple reasons. For multiple reasons. Part of it, the main importance, for me at least, is no blue on blue, right? Yeah. So in the beginning of the war, unfortunately, we had quite a bit of blue on blue because you have, again, a bunch of young guys who haven't been in war yet. They're terrified, okay? This is natural, okay?
I saw that coming beforehand.
It's natural.
Before we even began the siege on Gaza, I told my friends that there was going to be friendly fire. Obviously, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's going to happen. Anybody that knows anything about the military called it before it even happened. It's like it's going to be a mess.
Yeah.
And like right when I knew it was going to go down, I'm like, there's going to be a lot of friendly fire, especially because they're putting the active guys first. Obviously, they're young guys. They're fighting for their country, and it's not like they're going to Afghanistan from America. They're taking a bus down the street.
They're legit defending the home front.
The home
100%.
front. Yeah. So continue, please.
So you're right. Now that takes us into your question there with the CQB. So the CQB for us is like, holy crap.
Yeah.
You have buildings that have been destroyed by airstrikes. You have roads, okay, that we're driving on that have been completely prepped by D9s. In other words, all the paved roads are no longer paved. I'm driving on pure sand. Winter kicks in, right?
Oh, yeah.
So now we're trying to navigate in and out of the strip or wherever we need to with our operations, which again, I can't give the exact details of what exactly we do.
Of course, yeah.
But what I can tell you is a lot of these things became very complicated, right? It makes your mission, it complicates down your mission, throws a wrench, in what you're trying to do. Like I said, as winter's kicking in, as cold, what have you, all the different elements that you're facing, while at the same time you're facing urban warfare like never before. It's urban warfare where the whole terrain has been redone. The roads have been completely decimated so that there are no IEDs threatening our convoys of tanks or whatever they're going through into the strip. You have buildings, again, decimated by airstrikes because terrorists were firing from those buildings or attacking our forces or snipers or whatever. So you have, it looks like an apocalyptic scene of destroyed structures. And so looking for suspicious movements, what I'm looking at or what I'm searching, right, when you're doing CQB, like you pointed out, I'm not just searching here, and I'm not searching to the up high threats. I'm also searching to the underground threat, and I'm searching for threats in the rubble along.
Absolutely.
Where somebody could just be hiding with a weapon and make a quick, at you, or RPG or what have you, and it's like it's intense. It is very intense. So you're on very high alert, and you're like, I think is a really good point what you said there. I mean, like the CQB is not what we're learned to do, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like a CQB that's on a completely different level.
Absolutely,
right?
the most complex you could think of.
Very complex. Very complex.
Sniper, being a sniper, a lot of people think like Hollywood, oh, a sniper's on a rooftop.
No.
Nope.
No.
A sniper, actually, the best position is if I was going to be a sniper, a pile of rubble. I am going to make a ghillie suit out of garbage and whatever the hell I can that is in the streets. I'm going to put it on top of myself. I'm going to be in a little pile of rubble. They're going to think it's above, but I'm actually going to be like mid-level or below. And they would never suspect it. There are so many sniper opportunities in Gaza.
Yeah.
Which makes it so much more complicated. Would you say Israel softening the battlefield by doing airstrikes made it more complicated, or would you say that it helped?
It helped. It helped.
Okay.
Because that's exactly what you just pointed out there. Those are your threats. I'm not going to be able to identify that as, as we're maneuvering through the neighborhoods there, house to house, tunnel to tunnel, etc. And then, so essentially, you have to change the way you think about CQB. And we're in the day and age where you have drones. So you have drones that can actually clear rooms before you even clear the room.
Right.
Not to mention, of course, we have our firm missiles.
Is that always available, the drones?
No.
Okay.
No, not always. Again, depending on the unit, depending on the resources, etc., you have nicer stuff, nicer stuff.
Yeah, right.
But, that's as an example of like, what can I utilize? I can utilize drones, right? I don't have to clear the house myself with my unit and expose them to all the threats, booby traps, you name it, what have you. Where we were at, we had the heaviest casualties during the war, where we were literally in Khan Yunis there. Specifically, it was the area of Khan Yunis, where we had like 20 plus guys just in one day.
So they have the Khan Yunis brigade. They got the Gaza City, Jabalia, with the refugee camp.
Yeah.
And now they have Rafah.
Yeah.
Man, it's so good to get your insight on that. And
we've cleared two-thirds of the battalions.
Right. And
Their battalions.
There's a lot of people that are out there saying that we're losing this. I'm like, are you
No.
ready? So I want to give a quick example before we move on.
Yeah.
I want to give a quick example. When the United States did the Battle of Mosul in Iraq, the United States had multiple countries backing them, and there was no tunnels. It was ISIS, and there was no hostages.
Correct.
That took 9 months to complete, guys. I want to make that very clear. A lot of people miss out on that. A lot of people don't think about that. Why hasn't Israel just blah, blah? If we wanted to commit genocide, the war would have been over October 10th.
Sure.
Maybe even before, honestly. But Mosul, the Battle of Mosul in Iraq, a very densely populated ISIS stronghold, took 9 months, and we had the best of the best operating in that city. So we're on our own. Did you see any American forces or British forces on the ground with you?
No, just rumors. Just rumors.
Just rumors.
But no, wait, I didn't see them.
They're not on the ground with us.
Maybe they were. I don't know.
I mean, I think they're advising at the most, but even,
that I'm aware of.
Even a lot of military experts were like, "This is absolutely insane." Israel's dealing. This is going to go down in the history books, in my personal opinion. It's going to go down not only in the history books, but it's going to go down in military tactics. It's going to go. It's going to be in the college books. It's going to be in West Point on how you guys operated out there, and I'm honestly fascinated by it, and also very frustrated by it for multiple reasons. Yeah. But I'm fascinated by it in the fact that I think tactically in a lot of things that I do, and anybody who's been involved in this war in Gaza. You guys have a voice, and we need to get that out there. But we're gonna take a quick break, real quick.
You got 15 more minutes.
I gotta take a piss.
All right, fine.
I gotta piss. I had like 2.5 beers. I gotta piss.
Take a piss.
He's soft.
Dude,
I see it.
Jesus Christ, I'm trying so hard.
Soft.
To hold it in.
He wouldn't last.
Where are
in a
you
steak.
at with that beer?
He wouldn't last in a stakeout. You know.
I'm
Yeah,
like, what
right.
is it?
A
2
steak
hours
out.
in
I'm
and he's
recon.
dying?
See, that's my.
I'm recon.
Yeah. It's not to call these people out, and
No,
I think what's important is, again, I don't know these other guys, but like with this dude, I'm like, look, this dude, in my opinion, is seriously misinformed, and what I'm calling out is, don't say shit unless you've been in my shoes. The man, and I want to use the quote, "the man in the arena." I'm the man in the arena, with all due respect.
He's a former Green Beret.
Yeah, and one of the highest decorated BJJ black belts in Army Special Forces.
That's fine. We also had a lot of shitbags in my fucking unit. Listen, you have racist people, dude, in the U.S. Army.
Yeah.
I had a staff sergeant.
Here. My name is, the 47-year-old 3rd Special Forces Group veteran.
He was in 3rd group.
Yeah,
Perfect.
he was third group, who fought during the U.S.-led occupation of Iraq. Said during the February 2nd meeting in McKinney, Texas, north of Dallas. Great, because I have lots of family in Dallas. So we're
3rd
gonna.
group's out of Fort Bragg, and you can talk to him about his sex trafficking.
And he goes,
group.
So he writes, I know war. He continued, what is going on in Palestine right now is not a war. It is the dehumanization. It is the genocide. It's the ethnic cleansing of a specific people to take their land. This is wrong, and there's nothing more American than speaking out against what's wrong. And then he continues with I don't believe U.S. That this is coming out of our tax-paying dollars, and I don't believe that our tax-paying dollars should go to that. So my father ended up here part of that agreement.
Oh.
So it's known as the Sinai Agreement.
Yeah.
And what happens is Israel gets, I believe it's $4 billion every year, and Egypt gets $4 billion every year towards its defense budget. The difference is Egypt spends its defense budget freely on whatever they wish for their military. In other words, the U.S. doesn't tell them how to spend their money. Israel, we spend the $4 billion to develop joint U.S.-Israeli military projects that the United States then banks on, makes all their money on by selling that technology to other countries, and only as the very last whatever's left of those deals, Israel gets to try to cut whatever deal with whatever country and sell that technology or what have you.
Yeah.
So in other words, it's not that we get to spend the $4 billion where we want to, and our so-called, right now they're friendly, but our neighbors, right, they're building their military.
Yeah.
So that's a huge difference, I think, that people need to understand is if the United States stopped its defense budget towards Israel, we wouldn't lose out. The United States would lose out, in fact. So
people don't understand that we in Israel, we are like a speed bump for terrorism going into the Western world as far as Europe and America goes. We are the speed bump. We are out here dealing with it head on. And what a lot of people who are super right wing or super left wing, everyone's like, let's not fund Israel or Ukraine. Do you guys understand that it's less than 1% of the budget of the entire American United States budget that goes to any foreign aid? It's less than 1%. You can look that up yourself. Don't take my word for it. Look it up. Find every source you can. Less than 1%. Most of the budget goes to Social Security and other things like that. Less than 1%. So you guys are out here saying, let's not fund this and that. First of all, a lot of you people who are saying that in the first place have never been in a war, never been in a conflict, and you don't understand international relations or foreign affairs, because we're out here and we're fighting it head on, just so you don't.
Exactly. Exactly. In fact, the reason why the United States has that diplomatic tie, which part of the benefit, right, is that we benefit from a certain budget, but the benefit goes both ways. It benefits Israel, and it also benefits the United States. It benefits U.S. foreign relations and needs. The United States needs Israel to be able to defend the United States.
Absolutely.
That's a fact. And if people don't understand that, it's not that the United States supports Israel and Israeli occupation or Israeli apartheid or Israeli ethnic cleansing. That's not what the United States supports. It supports its foreign security needs to defend itself. And we help, and it doesn't get advertised, it doesn't get put out there on the media, and it shouldn't, because what happens in clandestine operations, in joint...
clandestine operations are like operations that you're not going to know about until they become public.
There's plenty of stuff that we do to assist the United States to fight terrorism on the very forefront of the United States war against terrorism. And yeah, so for Americans to make claims that they need to stop supporting Israel, they need to, and I'm of the perspective of, you know what, go right ahead, because I don't need you.
Yeah.
I don't need the United States.
We're not Jews with trembling knees.
I don't need you. Okay, we are very capable people. We're very formidable people, and with all due respect, if the United States doesn't want to support us, I'm good with my people. I'm good with what we're capable of. And most importantly, we have a God who has done miracles for the people of Israel for millennia. Read and look at history. Every nation, every civilization, every empire that has ever stood the test of time, they're all in the history books. We're still here.
We're still here, yeah.
We're still here. They all stood against us. They all tried to destroy us. We're still here. So I'm going to safely and very comfortably sit in the security of knowing my people's past, our history, and know that I also have a God who is going to stand behind protecting that people. So I kind of come from a different perspective, I guess, of many people, right? You know, who are like the majority of the guys in my unit. They're not God-fearing or professing in, you know, their Jewish faith or what have you per se. But I just lived through going through the valley of the shadow of death. You know, Psalm 23, we recite it every Sabbath. For those who don't know, it's one of the most beautiful psalms that we read. That He lays a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Go ahead, read the Psalm 23 if you don't know what I'm talking about. For context, for those who are listening to this, it's a beautiful psalm, and it came through my mind every time we would go through the most dangerous, scariest parts of Gaza. And people need to understand, we were not fighting a war of genocide and just, like I said, shooting it willy-nilly at anybody. I personally have been fired at directly, and I'm telling you, a miracle. And I was, you know, the guys are like breaking my balls about this, and like, yeah, Doron, sure. I said, guys, I felt the bullets, and then when we get like, I don't know how to explain it, but you hear the bullets when they whiz by you. You know that sound it makes.
Yeah, the crack in the
and it's that very uncomfortable, and it makes you, at least with me, like,
you pucker up,
dude. I like puckered up.
Pucker up.
But I mean, where I was positioned in this time where I was being fired at, I was actually in a convoy, and I was in a Hummer, and I felt the bullets coming at me, like I could feel it, and I was like, it was a weird feeling because I've never felt that before, and I swore I felt bullets coming at me, and the guys were laughing. We got back. And we looked at the guys who were in the command center where they saw the drone that was pulling security for us of our operation.
Right.
They go, Hummer number in the convoy. I said, that was mine. I was like, and the guys, they just looked at each other and they're like, no.
Brother,
shit.
I
like,
had a fat little fucking
you know,
16-year-old throw shit at me like a Molotov cocktail. I've had some dude.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, the children.
Yeah.
The children can be terrorists, guys. I hate to, you know what? It's a very controversial thing to say. People are like, don't be like, oh, the children. Yeah. When I was 12 years old, I was a shithead. And I'm telling you right now, if I was born in a radicalized city like Jenin or Gaza, I probably would have been a terrorist. I'll
probably doing what those kids are doing.
100%. Like, I'm not going to. You grow
I
up.
don't judge those kids.
No, I don't either. And it's unfortunate that they put themselves in that situation. But speaking about, you know, Judaism and everything like that, what are your thoughts on the self-hating Jews around the world like Jonathan Glazer with the most recent Oscar awards? Let's talk about that real quick.
Well,
let's jump into these people that are not only traitors, but the other people that are using their platforms to degrade us. So, as one who made a confession of faith and chose to become Jewish, chose to be part of Am Yisrael, I made a conscious choice. And it was based off of years of my experience. Pull up Sean King too, real quick.
Yeah, and that was built up with my experience of what led me to my choice that I made. I made that by choice, and I remember the rabbi telling me, you know that we're a people who are constantly chased by anti-Semites that try to kill us and try to destroy us, and what have you. Like, are you sure you want to join? I said, yes, 100%. I want to be part of Am Yisrael, and I will be willing to die for this decision I'm making.
Right.
And to criticize me.
Right.
And when I say me, I mean the people of Israel, the people who live here, the people who are fighting this war. and to criticize us of committing wars of genocides and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm like, brother, with all due respect, if you're not the man in the arena, which we are, we're the man in the arena right now.
Right.
Don't throw mud in my face and tell me and try to patronize me about what I am and what I'm not doing. What you're doing is you're using your platform, which is given to you by the grace of God, first of all. So be thankful that you even have a breath to speak out those words.
Right.
And the fact that you're going to deny your Jewishness,
Refute my Jewishness. He said,
it's
refute my Jewishness. I just burped in the mic, but yeah, he said refute my Jewishness.
And this is somebody who's saying this on the back of creating a film on the Holocaust. And I'm like,
have you ever heard of refuting a Jewishness? I've never in my life heard of someone saying, I refute my Jewishness.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
Dude, it's like, I'm willing to die for being part of this people and to fight for this people. And here you're like, I'm just refuting it, willy-nilly, like the way these guys do. And a lot of these people have done. You know what? I don't need you. Am Israel doesn't need you. Yeah. The people of Israel who are here, who have made that commitment, who have made Aliyah, who have either grown up here throughout the generations where we had Jews in the land of Israel, through all the thick and thin, we're here. We don't need your support. We don't need your thumbs up to validate what we're doing here. We're creating a beautiful state with beautiful people. And this war, if anything, has shown me, and this is what I love about what happened post the October 7th. Before that, we had riots in Tel Aviv. I'm trying to get my clients from A to B. Okay,
there's a lot
high-end clients, and I'm trying to maneuver through all these protests, and also trying to give my clients a good experience and not give them this like feeling of negativity, because they don't need to know and be a part of this junk that's happening. But this is what was leading up to October 7th. Now, the same people who were protesting and the people who were not protesting, we're all together, we're all in uniform, and we're all united, and we're all fighting. And the people who are not fighting, they're coming to the front line. They bring us hamburgers and pizzas and drinks and whatever. And it's like Am Yisrael is uniting itself and coming together. And when Am Yisrael means the people of Israel, or Israel, by the way, for those who don't know the term. And that to me is the most beautiful thing that I've seen during this war, is how we've been able to put aside all of our differences, because ultimately we're one family. It doesn't matter how different you think than I am, or politically, or what have you. At the end of the day, we're one people, we're one family. And that's the difference between fighting for the United States, you're fighting for your Irish heritage, or your Black American heritage, or your Asian heritage, right? But here I'm legit. Everybody who is on this battlefield, we're literally fighting for our family. And it doesn't matter if he has an Ethiopian coloring, or Asian, or European, white.
Yeah, well, see, this is the thing about
we're
them.
all one, and that's the beauty of Am Yisrael to me.
Yeah, we don't need you uppity Hollywood Jews trying to give a lecture on people who are actually out here and seeing this in real life. I just want to real quick before actually we'll do it afterwards.
Yeah.
Sean King, you little bitch. Sean King is a former BLM. Well, he still is, I guess. He is a BLM activist. We only have a few minutes left. I want to get into this.
Yeah.
Sean King, he was a BLM activist. He had his Instagram taken down. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
No.
I talked to Douglas Murray about him.
Yeah.
We both agreed that he is not black, and he pretends to be black just to get the attention and the financial support from the black community. Douglas Murray even said, "Is that the guy who thinks he's black?" Yeah. So Douglas Murray even said exactly what I was thinking.
Some weird people.
I love Douglas Murray. Great fucking guy.
I know, but some weird people out there.
Oh, that's the guy right there. That's the guy right there.
Yeah.
So now he's thinking, oh wow, like black people aren't getting that much attention. Let me just hop on this Palestinian train.
Yeah.
Let's give a shout out to Value and
so now he's an Arab.
Well, I think he's a Muslim now. So
now he's a Muslim.
Also.
Oh, great.
Well,
wonderful.
Yeah. So now he's like, well, the Palestinians are going through a lot more and they're getting a lot more attention.
I think that is his wife.
I don't know if you bought her online or. Anyways, Sean King, you are like, these people like this are the biggest cowards to me. And what pisses me off the most, and the reason why I made this Desert Dialogues in the first place, was because there's too many people that have huge platforms that have no idea what they're talking about. This guy acts like he is the biggest supporter of whatever types of people are going through a struggle. So he talks, and then people listen because
Whatever's cool now.
whatever's cool now. And I'm just like, when was the last time you were in Gaza? When was the last time you were in Israel? When was the last time you were in the West Bank? And there's not one Palestinian supporter that could say, I have ever been to the West Bank. I have ever been to Israel. I've ever been to Gaza.
Yeah.
And so,
wondering
Dayan,
about-
respect.
I
He
wonder
doesn't know his father, so that, his mom was black, or his mom was white, 100% white. She's a fat white lady. And then Sean King was like, I didn't grow up with a father.
Yeah.
So
Well, these
this guy,
are
anyways,
sad. I mean, honestly, these are sad. Let's put it as it is, okay?
It's the thing. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because they have a platform.
Yeah, I'm not gonna like character assassinate these people, but
I will.
I think what is clear here from what I'm hearing from you, I don't know this person, but based on what I'm hearing from you, it sounds to me like this is a person who has a very complicated background, and they're not secure in who they are, right? We're secure in who we are as Jews. We're very secure in who we are. Like I said, I don't need some Jewish guy from Hollywood to validate
Jonathan Glazer.
my-
He's not going to call you guys out. I'll do it.
my existence here. But like when I hear these people and I see these people, and I've seen this trend, like people wanting to be black, wanting to be, Arab
woman
or what have you.
A man, or a
And
man
it's
when
like,
they're a woman.
yeah, and I'm like, you're just not really secure in who you are, really. And it's sad people is some kind of recognition, some kind of, right, a cause to grab onto. But it's not because they care about the cause. It doesn't seem like to me. Obviously, since this guy's, hopping from Black Lives Matter to Palestinian Lives Matter or whatever, now he's a Muslim. It's like, bro, like, dude, like, you know what? Look yourself in the mirror. If he's hearing this, look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself some serious questions. Who am I?
He doesn't know.
Who am I? Who am I? Who am I as a human being? And you'll be a better person if you answer that. If you answer the answer behind the who am I, honestly. Because when you look in the mirror doesn't lie, brother.
Yeah.
The mirror doesn't lie. Take a good deep
And
look.
That goes out to you too.
You know?
And I like he doesn't know these people. He's obviously too busy, fighting in a war that Palestinians like to, or Palestinian supporters like to complain about online. But we're actually out here doing something about it. Gregory Stoker's also, he was a former U.S. Army Ranger, but clearly he said he went to intelligence afterwards. Since I served in the U.S. Army, I know for a fact that you're not just jumping from infantry to a tier 1 unit like he said he did within a 4-year contract. So he is a liar on that, and I just want to call him out.
Wow.
You are a fucking liar, dude.
So we have another.
I'm a Ranger. Okay, cool. Yeah, you did all the cool work. That's great. But then when you actually got to your battalion, clearly they didn't like you for a reason. And
what they call it, failure to adapt.
Yeah, failure to adapt. Now you're in the admin. I was a tier 1 intel. No, you weren't. You fucking liar. No one, everyone who served in the U.S. military knows you're a fucking liar, dude. Anyways, before we end this podcast, Doron brought some gifts that he's going to explain real quick. Go ahead and show the dog tags. First of all, let's show the Hamas dog tags real quick.
So if you notice the dog tags that we found, right? Like,
Here, you want to show them to your camera?
Yeah. I was putting that there.
So as you see these dog tags, right? Like, notice there's something weird about the dog tag, right? It doesn't have two sides to it. Most dog tags, military, U.S. military, Israeli military, there's a piece that breaks off. So one's on the dude who's, the person that belongs to. The other one goes to whoever's processing you. If you get injured or wounded or what have you, we have the dog tag to, This, it's like a one-off, It's like they don't give a crap if the guy dies.
If you
back.
look at it, it's both KH with 2 different military IDs on it, which is in my opinion, it's kill Hamas, but he says Khan Yunis, which makes more sense.
I honestly don't know what it stands for.
These are their shirts too.
But we legit have this is a real military. Some
Where did
people
you find these, by the way?
We found these in homes. We found these in homes.
And they weren't. They were a civilian home.
So this is found in a civilian home.
Weird.
We have
Crazy.
Muslim Brotherhood combined with Hamas. Okay.
Wow.
So the swords at the top there, that's the Muslim Brotherhood insignia. And then you have their statement there. But then you have Hamas there at the bottom, right?
Here, lift it a little higher.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So this is very common. Like, we found this everywhere. Obviously, that's why I'm able to show and tell, because we process a lot of intel. but I can't just
And then
walk
this-
away with the intelligence off the battlefield. Like,
No, yeah,
it goes
no.
through processing.
100%.
So this is literally the stuff that's like the overflow that I'm allowed to show
right.
and whatnot. And that's important to point out because a lot of people take these things as souvenirs or mementos. That's not at all what these are for me.
No, the American military just takes body parts as souvenirs, make them in a necklace.
I don't do that. But in any case, it's
That was
just
a joke. Don't take it too seriously.
So I know, right? Some people are.
Disclaimer.
And so see this right here. This is very common with the Al-Aqsa on there. And then lastly,
Look at this.
this is
Little
one of my
coffee mug.
this
I
is
know.
one of my favorites. When you guys have like Christmas mugs or you have a print of your family, this is what they have. This was found in a home. We had a whole batch of these that we found in a home, and you have the terrorist. I think it's the Al-Aqsa Brigade right there emblem.
Yes, it is.
And listen, we saw board games kill Jews. We saw what else? Report cards, like from school that had Hamas and the PLO stamp on it. So you had Yasser Arafat with Mahmoud Abbas holding hands.
Kissing.
Kissing.
Maybe making out a little bit.
But it's like so you get the idea. It's like they're imprinting it's an industry of terrorism that they're imprinting on the minds of the normal civilian, and that's why the casualty counts are so high in Gaza, because you need to understand we're fighting legit combatants with tens of thousands of supporting staff.
Right.
Just like you and I, when we go on a mission, right, there's somebody that makes sure I have the radio comms working, the battery works, the weapons work, the mags, the bullets, the what have you. There's a ton of support staff that actually gives a 12-man unit the ability to operate in the way that we operate, at least during my service now in Gaza. And so imagine you have whole battalions. Who's going to support them? So Hamas doesn't support, they don't have support staff like legit, like, normal support staff like that are military. They're just regular citizens who get a Hamas paycheck.
Also UNRWA staff. Now
Yeah,
that's confirmed.
Many of them, like, they work normal jobs, right? They live normal lives, but they're actually also on the payroll for one of the terrorist organizations.
In the counterintelligence, counterterrorism world, that is called part-time operators. They'll shoot an RPG at you, then go to the elementary school and start teaching Arabic or English. That's an
Legit.
actual thing. It's
legit.
documented. Like, look it up. You don't have to take my word for
Legit.
it.
And so all the casualties that you're hearing about, they're going to be one of those, either a full-time operator or a support staff, and or just a poor citizen that is being put into harm's way. And anybody who just maybe watched the last episode of the Sean Ryan, the 100th episode with Tim Kennedy.
I watched it. I watched all of the shows.
Me
Sean
too.
Ryan, shout out. You're one of my inspirations for this podcast, by the way.
So listen to what Tim Kennedy tells you when he throws a grenade into a room where a machine gunist is mowing down his guys, and unfortunately, the casualties to that grenade become civilians that these guys are hunkered down with.
Yeah.
That's our reality. So why am I bringing this up? Why is it okay for U.S. Special Forces, U.S. Marines that are fighting the wars for the United States against terrorism on other soils around the world, why is it okay for them to incur casualties like that we don't want?
Well, Marsoc actually had to deal with that one time. I had to say something about that. So Marsoc actually had to deal with something like that. I forgot which year. I could say 2014, but I don't know for a fact. But they had to deal with something like that, and they got a lot of backlash for it. But at the same time, like, being intel or being media, you don't know what's really going on the battlefield, and a lot of guys in the U.S. military did have to deal with backlash from that, and it's unfortunate. I forgot his last name, but Nick, he's a Greek guy. Nick, the Marsoc guy. I'll figure out your last name, how to pronounce it correctly, so I don't butcher it. But he actually pointed something out in the Marsoc community that they had to deal with, and it's rough, man, because like when you're hiding in a civilian population, it's almost impossible. And you do what you can, but this is the realities of war. This is evil, the most highest level, and to think that it's so black and white is ignorant. It is a gray area to the max. This is as gray as it gets. There's no black and white. There's no, why don't you send the Young Turks little blonde bitch? Oh, why don't you send in the special forces to go get the hostages and kill all the terror?
Wow.
Bitch, where are you from? Beverly Hills? That you've never like? Where do you even understand how military tactics works? That's not how it. If we could have done that, we would have done it by now.
First of all, I was there.
Yeah,
I was there with the special forces doing exactly that, searching for hostages. Thank God, we got intel that came through us that led us to the freeing of some of the hostages. There's a lot of stuff I can't give out.
Unfortunately, it wasn't all live ones.
But what I can tell you though is there's nothing more satisfying when we finally are able to get to one of the hostages, and we've been able to do that. And anyone who's covered the war, there have been some very, very successful hostage rescue missions that has nothing been like that ever in the history of warfare. Like we've been pulling off some of the coolest, if you will, the coolest, most badass hostage rescue operations that has never been done in the history of warfare. Okay, let it be clear. And like you pointed out, books will be written about this. That's not an overstatement. I was there. I know the people who carried out some of these missions. I know a lot of the stuff I can't talk about, but what I can tell you is the things that we pulled off, incredible. So hats off to those guys.
We might have to do a part 2, guys. Honestly, we might have to do a part 2. This is. I thought this is actually a great. This is a great podcast. I actually really appreciate you coming on. He's a very humble guy. Clearly, I'm not, and he is. He was there. He was in Gaza. I want to make it very clear that I'm just a little civilian out here, just watching what's happening. You know, I just happened to be here on October 7th. I got out of the military last June from the U.S. Army. I served in both militaries, the IDF and the U.S. Army. So I kind of got a good perspective on how operations work. So when I see people like that blonde bitch from the Young Turks talk, I forgot her name, that's why I say bitch, talk about how we should send special forces in, it irks me because I'm like, you're dumb and you don't know what you're talking about. That's not, if it was that easy, we would have done that a long time ago. And if we wanted to commit genocide, we would have been finished on October 9th or 10th. So when people speak like that, because this is personal, I react the way I do. And that's just me being an American at the end of the day. And I have an anger issue, I guess. But Doron, honestly, my first guest on my podcast, Desert Dialogues isn't just a podcast. It's dialogue. So I started it because I saw people like Piers Morgan interviewing Bassam Youssef, who is this. You see, we're unfamiliar with him, but look him up after this. He's a comedian that became famous off this war. He's an Egyptian. He was born in the 70s, and then he became a doctor, now a comedian. He uses his wit and his charm to influence the masses into supporting him. And when I saw that, I thought to myself, well, hey, these people don't know what they're talking about. And people who were actually on the ground have more important voices than people like Piers Morgan, Bassam Youssef, Chris Cuomo, Cenk, whatever it is. These people, like, I find irrelevant in the world, have more of a platform than you. Yeah. And my friends who were injured in this war, my friends who were almost killed in the Nova Music Festival that are close friends of mine, and me being here on October 7th, I'm sitting in my apartment thinking, how are these people able to have a platform when they've never stepped foot in this fucking country? And I'm tired of it. And so I never thought in my life I would make a podcast or a Desert Dialogues thing, but it's relevant. And since I feel like I have to play my part as far as this information warfare, which is this is actually a big part of the war now, because the amount of propaganda that Hamas has put out there, we need to fight back on it. Real quick, you did VIP security. Do you want to plug that? You want to?
Yeah. So I work for BHS Security in Jerusalem.
Is it international or is it just?
We do also international security. Okay. Yeah, in different parts of the world where we're allowed to do security. I want to dedicate this to Ilya Yanovsky. He's the brother of one of my good friends who's in my unit. He's a teammate. His brother fell fighting in Gaza as a platoon commander in Givati in the reserves. Total badass, and he lived his life the way he the ethos of his life. Actions, not words, was what was tattooed on his arm in the Latin. And this kid slaughtered terrorists, cleared homes, but then unfortunately met his end in one of the booby trap structures in Gaza. Him and fellow soldiers had fallen. So he's a total hero of mine, and I just want to give a shout out to him, just like Michael that you pointed out. And I want to give a shout out to Jack Carr, who's
I wanted to ask you about that
Jack
earlier.
Carr is one of the first ones that reached out to me. And
how was that, by the way, real quick?
It was totally surreal.
Yeah, legend.
The dude's a legend, of course. Everybody, if you don't know, check out The Terminal List.
Absolutely,
Check out the book series and the TV series on Amazon. Jack Carr, like you said, he gave his platform to highlight people who were in the conflict, irregardless of what his opinion is about Israel and so on. And I just want to take my hat off for his bravery to stick his neck out and use his platform to have my voice, which is not my voice as in me, but I see it as like I'm doing my best to represent our community of warriors here in Israel. And
shout out to Jack Carr. Honestly, shout out to Jack Carr. I hope he sees this.
Yep.
And Sean Ryan is a big inspiration for me when it comes to this podcasting stuff.
Yep.
I just
Legit.
like the way they get real people that know their shit.
Exactly.
I'm so tired of this fucking Bassam Youssef or whatever Sean King. I'm so tired of these fake people that have never actually been in a conflict.
Yeah.
And so I took inspiration from, and I wanted to bring this up earlier, but Jack Carr, Sean Ryan. And I'm just like, this is real stuff that regardless of how many views he gets, as one or two people hears it and they get something from it, that's what's important to me.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, this is the truth. This is on the ground stuff. And honestly, I wanted to ask you about Jack Carr. Jack Carr is a big legend in my mind.
Legit.
I'm so
legit.
Yeah, well, maybe part two we'll go in with Jack Carr. I meant to bring that up earlier, but I got into the whole Gaza thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, Doron, it was a pleasure to meet you. It was a pleasure to have you on you're my first guest, and you're a big deal out here. So this is a big deal for me as well, and I really appreciate you coming on here, brother.
Honored, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Alrighty.